Hey guys, I'm back. I have great news. This is the final chapter of the book. I am currently at 81% of the book. This wrapped everything up. Now, I will say that I made several mistakes when I was writing this book because generally you don't find out who the bad guy is until the end of the book. But I have learned, I have learned my lesson from that experience. And the really weird thing about it is when you write a cozy mystery, especially if you're new to writing these things, you will make mistakes in writing the book. So I do please apologize for people that got the info that it is who it is. I am truly sorry, but my next book is definitely better because you don't know until the end of that novella who the killer actually is. So, here goes. Chapter 8. The following day, Barbara kept her mood up by playing with Ching and placing Ming, the unusually lazy cat, on the counter. Ming had decided that being pregnant meant she could look down upon the rest of us as though we were her servants. Your kittens are going to be bratty, Barbara told her. She yawned at that. So how is this all going to work? Sam asked her, looking down the list everyone had compiled for the event. Well, the police are going to watch for any sign of Justin and anyone that might be associated with him. And the food, he asked? Because the last thing we need is for him to poison the food. Don't worry, I'm sure Hawk and Miller will keep that from happening. I'm keeping that from happening, Sally reminded them. I don't trust those two won't run off if they think a tall man is Justin. Do you think that Chuck will be there? Daniel asked them. Probably, Barbara told him, shaking her head. Makes me sick that he might have had a hand in his wife's death, and he's going to show his face among those who cared about her and the others. Yeah, it makes me want to vomit. The event is going to take place around 3, Barbara went on, trying to shake the unease that had started early that morning. So, we close the shop around noon, and I'm going to pick up Violet from my house, put the cats away, and then head back to the park. And I want you to have this, Sam said, handing a small device to her. She looked at it and asked, What is this for? Something that will enable us to know where you are, he said. This event will bring out someone hiding and causing nothing but fear for almost 3 weeks. I'm not going to have you get lost. It will also record anything that our deranged family talks about. She was touched and said, Thanks. Just make sure that it's placed in Just make sure that it's in a place that no one can find it, he told her, and it's wireless. The range is excellent. How good? 20 miles, he answered. Wow, that beats the good old days, she told him. Excuse me, I need to put my bug where no one can find it. By the way, I got drink. She ended up putting it on the inside of her bra. Only a sick pervert would rip her bra off to find something. When she came back out, they tested. By the way, where did you get this from? Barbara asked him, and it better not be by shady means. He laughed and said, Remember the woman you talked to years ago about handwriting? Yes, Barbara said slowly. Well, I told her that you would do something insane, and she agreed to send me over the bug, so that you don't die from doing something stupid. I just got it in the mail yesterday afternoon. We can find you if they stick you down a well. Yeah, thanks for the lovely image. The morning was busy as everyone wanted to buy something or the other. The book club arrived for their Saturday morning meeting, and it seemed they were going through Dracula. Barbara remembered the copy she had bought from Violet when she talked to her. She still hadn't cracked it open yet, though she decided right then and there that it would be opened when she got home. Our little kitty has a coat on, one of the little boys said, and Ching glared at him. Now, Bobby, we don't make fun of the kitty. His mother scolded. I want to put a hat on the kitty, a little girl said about Ming. Honey, cats don't wear hats, she said. Making Barbara snicker. Yes, I did put cat in a hat. I did the reference. Can you believe this? A teenage girl said loud enough for everyone to hear. They banned Frankenstein, and I can find it here. That's because the woman here doesn't turn her nose at horror. the woman told her. "Unlike those horrid board members I want to gut like a fish." "Oh, honestly, Claire, we don't talk like that here. I'm making my voice heard, Bart, and it's not like I'm going to do it. Yep, murder brings out the nasty in everyone." After the morbid group had left, the girl had brought Frankenstein. The rest of the day consisted of old ladies who wanted the newest Kindle or Nook, and a little boy who had to get 10 children's books. She sold some Goosebumps and even some old issues of Fear Street. All in all, she had a pretty good morning. She fed the kitties, and then Sam locked the door. "I'm headed home to get Violet and put the babies away." "Why don't we watch them until the event ends?" Sally suggested. "I think that would be much better than dragging them so soon after you fed them." "Are you sure?" said Barbara. "I'm sure," she said, "and I don't want you to have the babies on your mind when you're up there talking to people about those that had been killed." Oh, sorry. "Thanks," Barbara said, glad to have a little backup. However, she felt it was more because Ming had kittens inside her than anything else. During the last several days, Barbara had forced herself to forget about grieving to find out who had done it. To know exactly who had done it hadn't put her mind at ease. She doubts that leaving the earth would make things better. After checking that no one had messed with her car, she got in and pulled out. As she drove, she thought a lot about almost everything. She thought about the nasty girl who had grown to marry an ugly young man and give birth to filthy children. She thought about those who had come to settle down and sell what they loved the most. But she also thought about all the hate that books cause people. Barbara figured it was confirmed that most hated objects in the world wasn't an idol from a lost, forgotten city, but the very thing that moved people forward, that had given people passion, the desire for revenge. Books. That was the link to all this. Books. And right now it was all under attack. She pulled up in her driveway and got out, not even bothering to turn the car off. She unlocked the door and found Violet reading some sheets of paper. "Want to go to lunch before the event?" she asked. "That would be wonderful," Violet said. "Where are the darlings at?" "With Sally," Barbara answered. "I'll take you to the captain's inn." She gathered her papers and both left, Barbara closing the door behind her. As she got in, she saw that what Violet was looking at. "Your speech?" she said. "Yes," Violet answered, folding it and putting it in her large black purse. "I asked Sally if I could say something at the event. She said I could, so I worked on it all this morning." Barbara touched her shoulder and said, "I think Emma would be pleased." "Thanks," she said, and then Barbara pulled the car out and they headed back towards the park. As they headed back, she noticed that they were being followed. She couldn't tell who they were, but something told her that this wasn't Hawk or Miller's car. It was bright red, like those horrible red apples that she hated with a passion. And then she remembered that the man who had tried to kill her had driven a red car. And then the car rammed into them, sending them off the road. Violet screamed, and then the vehicle ended up in a ditch. Steam was coming from the hood of the car, and then, before Barbara could do anything, the car door was forced open. A man stood there, someone that Barbara had never seen before. "Oh, looky, the little author," he sneered. "You both are coming with us." Barbara was forced out along with Violet, and they were dragged to the candy-red car. Blindfolds were placed over their eyes, and all Barbara saw was her world in darkness. As the car drove away, her ears perked, a skill that she had acquired back when she had temporarily lost sight. She had a feeling where they were going. It was the place she didn't know. "Where's Mrs. Market at?" Hawk asked Sam, not seeing her anywhere. "She's probably on her way," Sam told him. "I know she plans to take Violet to the captain's inn for lunch." All around them, the final touches of the event were shaping up. In the distance, Hawk saw that girl, Sally, watching through the door that led to the kitchen. A couple of officers were helping her ensure that no one tampered with the food. "I'm going to make sure that she's at the captain's inn," he told Sam. "Excuse me." As he headed for his car, leaving Miller to watch who was coming in and moving around. When he arrived at the inn, he found the owner, Tommy, pouring drinks and several women putting food trays on tables. He didn't see Mrs. Market or her friend. "Is there a problem, Detective?" Tommy asked him. "Did Mrs. Market and her friend come in here?" Okay. It's weird. It did a little line thing. Thank you, Grammarly. Love you to death. He asked Tommy. He shook his head, making Hawk curse. He ran back into his car and gunned it back to the park. She's gone, he told Miller, and her friend isn't there as well. She's been taken, Miller told him. They told Sim about what happened, and he said, thank God I had her wear that bug. What bug? One of the women that had worked with Barbara during one of her books gave me a bug to put on her so that anything happened to her, we can find her. She has it inside her bra. Then we can use the bug to locate her. And when we find her, we'll find the rest of them, Miller said. Turn that thing on and let's track ourselves down. Turn the thing on and let's track down ourselves some riders. Before she ends up joining those that have died, Hawk added. The smell of animals hit Barbara like a ton of bricks. They were both placed in chairs and tied up. Thankfully, none of them checked for the bug that she had on her. And she had a feeling that they were being tracked right now. Don't have anything witty to say? The voice said, making Barbara grit her teeth in anger. I'm not going to waste my time, Barbara hissed. So what is the point in trying to kill me? I mean, I've survived the 2 other times you tried. Oh, I'm not the one that did that, he said. I'm just the one to make sure that both of you don't get away. You must both pay for what you've done. And who shot my window and almost hit my cat? Oh, that was Annie, Chuck answered. Too bad she missed the bitch. Yep, he was loony and sick. What have we done? The books, he hissed. All those nasty books that you sell. Other groups might not want to bloody their hands, but we are more than happy to shed as much blood as we can. And the both of you will die here. The blindfolds came off, and Barbara blinked as a sudden flood of light into her eyes. When her sight readjusted, she saw that they were in a barn. They were both in an ancient barn, and They're both an ancient barn, and from the glint of bronze. Oh, sorry. I had it correct the first time. They were both in an ancient barn from the glint of bronze on the wall. See, I did the sentence correctly. I don't know why my brain fizzled out and thought I hadn't. She couldn't tell what it was, but it looked like one of those historical plaques she had seen several times. She turned to face the man who wanted her dead. Don't tell me you work for the same group that Justin and his sane sister works for. The man slapped her, but Barbara didn't make a sound or show an emotion. She wouldn't give him that pleasure. You don't have the right to speak its name, he spat, a name that means more to us than even our country. Yep, he wasn't only loony, he was a grade-A psycho. The barn door opened, and in walked Justin and the man who had driven her car off the road. Both had cold smiles on their faces. Not so smart are you, Mrs. Market, he said. Couldn't be a good little girl and allow me to kill you. Sorry to ruin your fun, Barbara said, but I'm sort of like living. Not for long, he said. Not for long, my dear. And that goes for your little goth witch. Barbara looked at him with a cold, stone-like face and asked, So, you're the one that killed your wife? Had to, he said. And since you both will be dead, then it won't matter what I say. No one will ever find out the truth. Yes, I killed my wife. She decided to burn your store down to get you back for taking more of her business. Of course, she had no idea that I intended to kill her. I made her sign a life insurance policy, which should be in today, and I have to thank my daughter for taking an interest in biology and chemicals. So, I was right about her having a weak signature, Barbara said, grinning. I bet you thought that you had the perfect plan. So, what did she do to make you want to kill her? Didn't give you enough sex, you fat oaf? He slapped her across the face, and Barbara spit the blood on his shirt. She narrowed her eyes at him. How dare this man think he would get away with this? You made a child motherless, Barbara told him. Of course, you don't care about that. Oh, cry me a river, he said. I don't give a damn about some little girl. The police aren't going to let you get away with this, Violet said. I bet they're on their way now to arrest the whole lot of you. I'm going Father, no, Justin said. She's all talk and no action. After they're both dead, we won't have to worry about them anymore. Make sure of it, he hissed. But to answer your question, I couldn't stand her. All she was going on and on about those other booksellers and those damn book bans. She didn't understand anything that I went through. She didn't understand how evil her books were. Of course, she was a little witch, and I decided that she should die the same way that witches in the past died. Burning her and the gasoline she brought allowed me to do just that. And I bet Justin was one that burned her shop down. Justin laughed and said, You should have seen the wonderful sight of all those books burning. It made me feel like I was finally doing something. Yeah, I bet, she snarled. You were acting like such a big man. The bitch talks too much, the man told them. I learned how to talk like that from my husband, she said, hoping she would join him today, and the others. Justin blew Taylor's car up, and Annie burned his shop down. And don't tell me the same for the others, Barbara figured out. Both of your sick, twisted children burned their stores down after they were killed, but I have a feeling that you were the one who burned Emma in the woods, something that you would be able to do. He hunts, Barbara, Violet said. He knows those woods. Chuck smiled and then at them and said, Yes, I know the woods like the back of my hand. It seems fitting to burn her for her crime. The whole thing didn't make any sense, but then again, the people doing this weren't making sense. Nothing they believed in made any sense. It was a delusion that many fell into. The only difference was they were spilling blood and taking lives. You won't be able to get away with this, Barbara told him. Oh, but I already have, Chuck said. By the time they find your bodies, we'll be long gone, and with a good chunk of money with us. Barbara glared at him. She hated writing about them in her books. They all acted the same, and it didn't shock her that she had gotten this sick man precisely right. They all thought they would win in the end. What about your sister? Violet asked. She can rot, Justin said. She screwed up, and she needs to face the consequences of her actions. Oh, what brotherly love, Barbara snarled, her anger flaring up again. You leave your sister rot while you two live big. I'm sure that one day she'll understand. Lock them in, Chuck ordered. We have an event to go to. All those crying eyes. I even wrote a speech. When we come back, both of you are going to burn. He laughed, and they all left, closing the barn behind them. And then she heard the car pull out and drive away. That was when Barbara knew she would have to get them out of this. Sorry. If this bug worked, the police had their confession, but it would take them time to find them. We need to get out of here, she told Violet. How? She asked. Leave the first part to me, she said, looking around. The barn had been cleared of things that Chuck and his son thought she could use to escape. However, their plan wasn't as foolproof as they thought. The chairs they were on were old, most likely used to help the farmers milk their cows, which made Barbara wonder where the farmer was. There was a large metal tub that was used to hold milk before it was sent to the tower to be... There was a large metal tub that was used to hold milk before it was sent to the tower. It might be an old barn, but the sound of barn animals told her that the operation was not as old as the barn. She checked her bindings and saw that her legs were tied against the chair leg. Okay, this is going to hurt in the morning, she said, leaning back and forcing the chair back with her. The chair fell and she heard the sound of cracking wood. Are you crazy? Last time I checked, I don't want to be dead, Barbara reminded her. So little craziness is needed. She forced her body forward and threw herself against the floor. Another crack of wood. The third time the chair broke. Her legs were freed, and she then twisted her arms and forced her arms over her head so they were now in front of her. How in the... I'm double-jointed, Barbara told her. Makes me glad they didn't know that about me. You're full of surprises, Violet remarked, and in this case, I'm glad that you are. Thanks, Barbara said. Let's get you untied, and you can untie me. Right, she said, and Barbara could tell Violet's mind was clear. She helped Violet free herself of her binds, and Violet did the same for her. Now, let's act like Nancy Drew and figure out a way out of here, she told her, looking around. What about the men? Barbara knew that most of them might be up in the main house, though she doubted there was a bunch of them standing outside. If there had been, they would have been back. I doubt any of them expect me to be double-jointed and get out of this. Barbara then headed for the plaque and looked at it. She read, Water Horse has dedicated this barn as one of the places where hidden enslaved people were housed before they could take the ship back to Africa. The plaque will be a vivid reminder of the bravery many had to try to stop an age-old evil. Wait a minute, Violet said. I remember coming here as a kid. The owners told us that there was a hidden door that was used to hide enslaved people and supplies. Do you remember where it was? Barbara asked her. Let me think. She watched Violet check every inch of the barn and then announced, Here it is. Hid under a pile of hay was an old steel door. Barbara doubted that Chuck and Justin even knew that it was here. They might have yet to check the plaque when they decided to use this place. Both women forced it open, the door making no sound, and she saw it was darkness. Barbara checked her pocket, hoping that the morons didn't take her penlight. Thanking God, when she found it, she turned it on. A small amount of light illuminated the darkness. Score 0 to them, Violet said. We'll celebrate when we get out of here, she told Violet, and they climbed down, closing the door behind them. Okay, I've located her, Sam said. It looks like they're on the stone farm. Is that the farm that she drove into the pig pond? Miller said. The same one, Hawk told him, and then he took out his radio. All units converge on the stone farm at once. Our missing women are there. We're on our way, a woman's voice said, and Hawk and Miller, followed by Sam, got into their cars and drove away. This reminds me of the hidden staircase, Barbara told Violet. Remember that book? I do, she said. I love how Nancy was able to find that hidden tunnel. Okay, so we know that this wasn't the only place that hid enslaved people. I mean, it would be too easy to find them. I'm thinking this is an entrance to a tunnel. Because of the ship reference, Violet supplied, and Barbara nodded. Look around for anything that's out of place. She handed her penlight over to Violet, who started to look around. When she finished her side of the small room, she returned it. Barbara noticed something that made it stand out from the rest as she took it. A wooden pole that didn't belong in a completely stone room. She pulled at it, nothing, and then she pushed. There was a sound of moving stone, and soon a very cobwebbed tunnel greeted them. Barbara wondered if the wooden pole had been here when the tunnel had been used. The owner might have put it here so that he knew exactly where the hidden spot was, which made getting out of here much more accessible. Oh, I hate spiders. And I hate ants. No, I had an ant on my hand. I hate ants. Violet remarked, and Barbara saw what she meant. There was a thick cobweb that looked like it had been woven by a giant spider, not a small one. However, she knew she must muster up the courage to do this. Both their lives depended on them getting out of here. I don't think your corpse will care, she said, and she pushed the cobwebs aside, and they both made their way through the tunnel, the door closing behind them. Barbara could tell at one time that the tunnel had been lined with burning torches. However, they had long since rotted away. Their only light was the penlight, and she wasn't sure how long it would last. They needed to get to the other side of the tunnel, and fast. She also kept her ears to any sound from behind them. If Justin, Chuck, or their goons returned to find them gone, she doubted it would take them long to find them unless they did know about the tunnel, which told Barbara all she needed to learn about how smart they were. As they walked, Barbara went over everything that had happened. She couldn't believe that she had been fooled into thinking that Chuck Hart had nothing to do with the death of his wife. She had learned many lessons the hard way about what people were capable of. She also thought a lot about the boy who had grown up to kill someone that he claimed to love. Then again, both had been on a whole level of manipulation. Still, she had no right to judge the dead. The only person she judged was the living, and the lives that they had made a point of taking away. The whole thing made no sense, especially with the others they had killed. Emma and Taylor had done nothing wrong to deserve the fate they had gotten. The only thing that these cycles cared about was taking everything away from them, including their lives. "Are you all right?" Violet asked, breaking Barbara away from her thoughts. "I think these men are on some level stupid," Barbara told her, pulling her thoughts to the now. "Brainwashed people are always the dumbest," she reminded Barbara. "We're the smart ones." "So true," she said. As they walked, Barbara couldn't help but think of the men who had walked this tunnel over 100 years ago. They must have put up with many things before hitting that boat to freedom. Finally, when Barbara thought the tunnel would never end, a blast of light hit their faces, making Barbara wince and cover her eyes with her arm. The sea could be heard, and they knew they had made it. There was also a wired mesh, most likely to keep people from damaging the tunnel. "Looks like the university put this mesh up," Barbara told her. "Great," Violet muttered. Barbara checked it and found that some of the mesh was rusty. It seemed that they put it up but hadn't bothered to maintain it. "So all we need to do is find the weak point and use it to get out of here." Barbara nodded and both women started looking. The top part looked like it had enough strength to keep them on this side of the mesh. The light from the other side gave Barbara enough to see. As she looked, she could tell that Violet was getting worried. She blocked that out and focused on figuring a way to get the mesh to let them through. And then, when she was about to give up hope, she found a flaw in installing the mesh. "Look here," Barbara said, pointing to some rocks. "Whoever put this up didn't realize that these rocks were loose. Give me a hand in moving this." Violet nodded, and both women worked to remove some of the rocks. Soon the mesh was loose enough to be forced to give them a big enough opening to go through. Soon both women were free. "Now that's over," Violet said. "How are we getting down?" The waves crashed against the wall, but then Barbara pointed something out. A set of stone steps which had been carved led them down to the beach. This must be where the men went down to reach the boat. The only problem was that time and water had eroded them, so no man could get there. It was only wide enough for women's feet. "Let's be careful," Barbara warned. "We aren't exactly wearing climbing shoes." She was wearing pumps, and sure, Violet was also wearing them. To her shock, Violet was wearing boots. Violet grinned, telling her that there were benefits to not being a girly girl, like getting down these ancient stairs. "You're wearing boots." "I hate pumps," she confessed. "Always have." Taking a deep breath, she slowly descended the steps, Violet behind her. She slipped on the rocks twice before she threw the pumps into the water. $200 pumps meant nothing if you couldn't get down the cliff with your life intact. Something also told her that the men climbing these steps wore no shoes. Violet kept her hand on her arm and both hung onto the grooves on the side of the cliff. Barbara prayed that both of them wouldn't fall off the side and end up with a broken neck. After what seemed like forever, they finally made it to the beach. She turned to see that the farm wasn't even in sight. There was no one watching them. Nothing was shot at them. It seemed that she had been right about the men not knowing about the tunnel. She breathed a huge sigh of relief. "We need to get help," Barbara told her, and then unbuttoned her shirt. Sam, me and Violet are off the beach. We used an old tunnel to get out. Please come and get us out of here." "That's odd," Violet remarked. "Son gave me a bug to put in my clothes," Barbara told her. "I'm just hoping that it wasn't damaged." A large helicopter answered that inquiry about whether the bug even worked. It landed a few feet away from her, and a woman ran towards them. "We heard you," she told Barbara. "Come on, let's get you both out of here." "I'm giving Sam a raise," Barbara told Violet as they climbed in. "A nice vacation and promotion." The helicopter lifted off and headed back to town. "The medevac has them," Sam told Sally as soon as Hawk told him the women were safe and headed back to town. Everyone cheered at that bit of news. Sam was personally happy that Barbara was all right. There was no way that he was putting on the next job application. They lost his boss to some insane book haters. "Oh, thank God," Sally said. "Oh, the babies were so worried about her." I think I have an idea, Sam told Hawk. Something to shock Chuck and Justin for the system. Fill me in, he said. Barbara was glad for a cup of coffee that Tommy gave her. They were taken back to the helicopter. They were taken from the helicopter to a car which drove them back into town. While they had been on board, a nurse checked them over. Despite everything, they were in good health. That was another thing that Barbara was thankful for. Thanks for remembering why that plaque was there, Barbara told Violet. You're my new best friend. Thanks, she said, smiling. I still can't believe they think they're going to get away with it. Well, for now, they think they are, Barbara told her, and then she had an idea. One to match all the drama that Chuck and his family had put this town through. Violet, do you have any cloaks and robes? Of course, she said. Why? It's time to give them an ending they'll never forget. Violet handed Tommy the keys and he ran to her store to pick them up. So are you going to tell me what happened? Hawk asked Barbara. It's everything we thought it was. In the end, she told him. Chuck drugged his wife to make her sign the life insurance papers. She had no idea that her husband even had money on her. He knocked her out and used the gasoline that she had brought with her to kill her, saying that she had to pay for her crimes. And we all know what kind of crimes he thought she was doing. He was also mad at what her... Ouch. He was also mad at what her passion was doing to him. He had been told and believed that the books his wife and others sold were bad and must be destroyed. He thought that killing her and having his children help him would make things better. But then he knew he had other stores that needed to be handled. So all three of them, along with their insane partners, came up with a plan to not only kill the remaining booksellers, but also to torch their businesses and get rid of any remaining family members that might be able to reopen their stores. Did Mr. Hart say this? No, not the getting rid of any remaining family members, Barbara admitted, but it's pretty clear that's what they moved up to when they tried to kill Emma's husband and daughter. So that's why Chuck's daughter was there, Sam said, to kill the husband and daughter. Barbara nodded and then said if there was any chance that Emma's husband would reopen the store, then that was something they couldn't allow to happen, so they decided to get rid of them as well. Makes you wonder if they had a hand in Taylor's mother's death. Hall shook his head and said no, that was suicide. The enemy confirmed that she took the life the day that her son died. So sad, Sally said. The whole thing has been one unfortunate book I'm glad will be closing. I'm concerned that they will try to poison the food, Daniel said. I mean, look at all those groups and people coming. My officers will make sure that doesn't happen, Hawk said to them, assuring them everything would be all right. I want to know what they hope to get out of this. I mean, killing and burning down shops, breaking into homes, it's not going to stop people from buying books. Even those nuts that protest books in schools know that people will still buy them. Those groups don't care if you go to the bookstore and buy whatever you want, Barbara told them. All they want to do is keep them out of school. These people take that desire and turn it into an excuse to kill people. How long do you think it will take those men to realize that you and Violet are gone? They probably still don't know, Barbara told Daniel. They didn't know about the tunnel and they didn't know about the trap door. Sometimes I think it's always good to have the bad guy be as stupid in one area of the whole. I want to kill someone desire. Well, I'm glad you're both are all right, Sally said, but I want to know how you got out of your binds. I'm sure they didn't do that. I'm sure they did that. Barbara laughed and said, I'm double-jointed. Everyone in the room looked at each other and then at her. Please rephrase that, Sam said, confusion in his voice. You're what? I'm double-jointed, she repeated. Sally shook her head and said, You're full of surprises, boss. Thanks, she said. So what else did he confess to, Hawk asked. To help his children with the other murders, Barbara said, including Emma's. It must have taken everything in you not to scream at them, Sally said, and Barbara could tell that she didn't like this. Barbara had good control over her emotions, Violet told her. I'm proud of her. Thanks, she said. It took everything in me to not want to attack them. However, I didn't know if they had guns on them or if they would use the advantage of having numbers on their side. I wasn't about to take that risk. The smartest thing that you've done, Hawk told her, and something I'm sure that they would have expected you to do. Barbara agreed, and then Tommy came back with some items that had come from Violet's shop. Thanks, Violet said, taking them from him and getting her key back. These will do just fine. So, does anyone have a plan? Sam asked, who had stayed silent through most of what Barbara had told him. Yes, I do, Barbara said, and I'm going to need Hawk and his men's help. And they pressed their heads together and formed their plan, which Barbara had to admit was pretty clever. The only thing that Barbara liked about the robes was they kept out the cold out. They drove down to the event in Tommy's car, their faces uncovered. There was a massive crowd of people, and the moment Barbara saw that others were on the verge of seeing them, they pulled their masks down. The event looked like a proper memorial with a black sash, ribbon, and plenty of seating. The large stage where those who knew the victims would have them sitting was empty. Some officers were watching the food, and she knew that Hawk and his partner had gone ahead of them. Several people that Barbara knew were there, including her agent. It warmed her heart to learn that all these people had come to remember people who meant so much to the community, even if one of them had been as rotten as the man who had killed her. I think we look like characters from medieval horror books, Violet told her. I think you might be right, she said, allowing herself to grin. A man appeared at their side, and Barbara was relieved to see that it wasn't one of the jerks that had kidnapped them. Love the robes, ladies, he said. The whole thing fits with this horrible occasion. Glad that you agree, Tommy said. Miss Market wanted some stage performers here. I think that Taylor and Emma would have loved it. The man hit Barbara in the back, almost making her hit him. However, she held her temper long enough for the man to leave. Who invited him? Violet asked. Don't know, but I hope never to see him again, Barbara said. They continued to walk, watching as the crew started to put things up. It would be 10 minutes before the event would start. As she was walking, she saw one of the men approach the table. She gave a sign to Hawk, who came around and grabbed him. I don't think so, he said. I have eyes on all the goodies here. And he led the man away, allowing Barbara to breathe a sigh of relief. Chuck's men were already starting to try and harm the people here. It's time, Tommy said to them, and both women nodded. Let's get this over with, Barbara told Violet, and they joined the others as they came on the stage. They took their places behind a row of seats for several members of the library board, the business council, and a couple of authors who had decided to come to the event. When they show up, don't do anything, Barbara told Violet. Remember, we'll get our revenge just by the looks on their faces. Sorry. This is your show, Violet said, and everyone started filing in. It took everything Barbara had to make good on her own words when Chuck and Justin appeared and sat down. She turned her head to find Sam standing there. He nodded, and she knew he was there to support her. She nodded at him, but said nothing. Remember what I said, Chuck told his son. Yes, Father, he said, which reminded her too much of how Draco Malfoy talked to his father, like he was kissing the older man's feet and loving every moment. It was so revolting. Then everyone took their places, and Barbara was surprised to find one of her favorite mystery writers. When this was over, she'll get the man's autograph. In front of her were about 100 people, all of them wearing black. It made her feel the tears starting to come down her face. Today we honor the memory of 3 people who fought to protect our right to read by allowing people to come and access the books they wanted. Their deaths were senseless and pointless, but then again, any kind of hate is senseless and pointless. No one should have to suffer at the hands of those who would rather spill blood than allow people to live in peace and read what they want. Missy Hart, Taylor Lovechild, and Emma Stone all believed in something far more significant than themselves, and while they have all been laid to rest, their legacy will continue and will never be erased. Their legacy continues in the hundreds of thousands of bookstores, great and small, that dot this great country of ours. It lives in our librarians, the spirit of our libraries, and the home of small and large libraries. What happened to them was hate, pure and simple. It reminds us that some people who love to return us the days when books and ideas were burned. However, they will always live in our hearts and our minds. Let us not forget who they were and what they stood for. Like Chuck and Justin care about that, Barbara thought, though she had admitted it was a good speech. I will now turn the mic over to Misty Hart's widower, Chuck Hart. Everyone clapped, but Barbara decided it was time as he stood up. She wasn't about to have him say lies and pretend that he was all upset that Misty was dead. She stood up when he did, but he didn't notice her. She watched as he walked across stage, and then she spoke. "Liar!" She screamed the part out and then removed her hood, showing her face. The look on his face was enough to make her want to laugh. However, her body was so filled with rage that she missed the humor. He went pale, and then she said, "You killed your wife. You did it because you hated what she stood for and what she did. And you thought that you'd get away like you tried to kill me and Violet." Violet came up behind him and grabbed his arm, which was good because Barbara would later on find out that he had a gun. "Not so fast, chubby boy." The police appeared on all sides, guns drawn, and Hawk grabbed him from Violet and put the cuffs on him, and Miller did it to Justin. "Chuck Hart, you're under arrest for the murder of your wife, Misty Hart, and accessory to the deaths of Emma Stone and Taylor Lovechild." It was finally over. As she turned to look at Sam, Sally, Daniel, and Tommy, she could tell they were glad it was also over. "You did good," Violet said as the two men were taken away, much to the horror of those who had come to attend. "They would be proud of you." "Thanks," I said. "Thanks," she said. "I'm glad that no one got hurt and that they can find peace. Though I doubt they'll give the judge any peace." "Barbara, what is going on here?" her agent said, who looked as confused as anyone. "Hawk will tell you," she said. "I just want to forget this day ever happened." She had 2 cats to get back to and a robe to hand back to Violet. "Do you think we can get anything to eat?" Violet asked, "because I'm hungry." Barbara touched her shoulder and said, "After a day like this, I could use something to eat. This is weird. Look at that. I don't know, you can't see it. Alright, this is a mistake on the Kindle. It's supposed to be on the next page. Yeah, that's weird. Alright. Okay. Epilogue. I'm gonna say before I continue with this epilogue, I personally saw that this is not what appeared on the Kindle preview. So for people that get the book on Kindle and you notice that is not my fault. That is the fault of the program. I double checked and it came back. The epilogue was on the next page. So sorry about that, guys, in advance. "I still can't believe that both of them thought they could kill you both," Daniel said to Barbara a week after the events of the memorial. Barbara had spent several days away from the shop. She needed to get her thoughts together and not be around anyone. The only things that she was around were her cats. It amazed her that she could write about murders and victims, but she had almost become one herself. She was sure that Violet was doing the same thing as Sam told her the sign on Violet's door told anyone that she wasn't coming back for a week. It was good to get away from something and see things differently. She was playing with Ching, who loved the attention and the lack of cone. Sam told her that he had taken Ching to the vet to have the cone removed. However, he got one photo of him wearing a Christmas hat while wearing the cone. Barbara found that it made her laugh, and she needed that more than ever. "Yeah, but did you see the shocked looks on those that had come?" Sam said. "I'm telling you, I'm glad I recorded the whole thing because it felt way too real to be reality." Barbara laughed and said, I write about dumb killers. I write how dumb killers are. I know they are smart. I know there are smart ones and there are dumb ones. And Chuck and his children are poster adults for being stupid." "I can't believe that you found an old slave tunnel. That must have been amazing." "It was," Barbara admitted, "but the mesh wasn't so amazing. I'm sure the university knows the mesh has been damaged. Hogg will most likely tell them. And they'll demand that you replace it." "Which I'm okay in doing," Barbara told him. "I'm glad they care enough to put it up." Violet got excited about seeing it, Barbara admitted. "Though I must admit it wasn't as exciting as finally getting out of there. And those stones, almost caused me to fall off the side. Thank God that Violet was there and wearing sensible shoes. Barbara threw hers into the ocean, Violet told him. Sally stared at her and said, You threw away over $100 pumps? Barbara rolled her eyes and said, Those pumps would have done me no good if I was dead. Point taken, Daniel said, taking a slice of pizza. All the while Ming and Ching looked at him as though he had done something wrong, like not giving them some. Both of you, no human food, Barbara told them, noticing where and why they were looking the way they were. Don't worry, they can't charm this slice of pizza from my plate. Barbara rolled her eyes and said, Dan, they're going to wait until your back is turned, and then they're going to grab it. Sure enough, they did precisely what Barbara had warned Daniel about. Her friend wasn't happy. Told you so, she said, shaking her head. So what happens now? Violet asked. Well, all three of them. Annie woke up 2 days after Daddy and Brother were arrested, and will be going away for a long time. Misty has a much younger sister, and she told me she plans to move to Waterhorse and reopen Enchanted Reeds. She said that her sister would have wanted that. Sad how all this happened, Sally said. I mean, killing your wife for insurance money? That won't be happening, Sam said. Hawk told me the insurance company won't add that money to Chuck and Justin's books. I doubt they have family who will add money to their books anyways. I don't think that any of them want to be associated with someone who killed their wife. How am I not sad about that? Violet said. Yeah, the whole family was 3 levels of creepy, Daniel told them, shuddering. Look at everything they did and what they wanted to do to our dear Barbara. Barbara was flattered. Oh, and speaking of that creepy homicidal family, Sam added, Detective Hawk called me to tell me that the sister cut a deal with the feds. She would be placed in federal women's prison. In exchange, she would give them the names of all the members of her group and the location of at least 10 graves that contain the bodies of 30 former booksellers and authors. I think that some of the families think their loved ones just don't want to talk to them. Never filed a missing persons, Sally said, horror in her voice. Sam shook his head. God, that's just sick, Barbara said to him. Really, really sick. What about the family? Sally asked him. You and Violet never saw them when you both had been tied up. About that, Sam said, and Barbara felt she wouldn't like this. The police found their bodies. They killed them so that no one from the main house could help you both out. Sorry about that, but it's confirmed that the same family saw you go into that mud pit. Barbara shook her head. Her phone suddenly rang, and she went to pick it up. It was Josh. Hey, what's up? She asked. Nobody your age should be saying that, he joked. I just wanted to call and thank you for all that you did. I know that wasn't what you call an ideal 3 weeks. I also was told about what happened to you and your friend. I still can't believe they thought they could escape it. You would be surprised what people will think, Barbara said. Oh, I meant to call you and tell you that I finished the rough draft of the book. Once I'm done correcting it, I'll send it to my publisher. Thanks, he said, once again for everything. It was nothing, she said. Another thing, Josh added, I just wanted to tell you that you gave some authors ideas when you pulled that hood up. Great, really great, Barbara said, shaking her head. Just what I need to give authors ideas they probably would have come up on their own. Don't doubt it, Josh said, and tell those kiddies that I said hello. I will, she promised, and then hung up. So all well that ends well, Sally said. The bad guys are locked up. No more fires, no more murders. Cats are once again plotting to take over the store. And Sam and Daniel are happy that you've decided not to sell books with creepy covers. Hey, I never said I stopped buying them, Barbara countered. I just think I'm limiting how much horror I buy. I've been through enough of it. Thank you very much. Things returned normal for Barbara, and soon her mind was occupied not with people who wanted her dead, but with customers. And it seemed that her little adventure living her books had brought in more customers. It was not something that she thought she would ever get used to. I bet the whole thing was scary, a girl said a week after returning to work. It was, Barbara confessed, but I learned a lot. Does this mean that you have an idea for write a new book? A woman said to her, making her think that this woman was the girl's mother. I don't know, she confessed. I mean, I could write a new book, but I doubt anyone would want to read something from an author that hasn't written in years. I would read it, Sally encouraged her. Sally looked at She looked at Salad and the two women. I'll think about it. 4 months later. The weather was getting warmer, and soon she saw the ships heading out. It was time to go and catch the hard-to-find fish that hadn't been able to get during the winter months. She shivered in the cold as she unlocked the store and got Ching and Ming out of their carriers. The summit that Ming had told her that she would soon have her brood. When they opened the shop of the day, the first person to come in was a man she had seen before, though she couldn't place him. "May I help you?" she asked, smiling at him. "Yes, I'm hoping that you can," he said. "I'm Anthony Walters, representing Misty Hart's estate." She stared at this man. Why was he even here? And why was Misty's name coming up? The one that was legally created or illegally? "Legally, thankfully," he said. And then he looked through things. "The will was read yesterday, and I'm sorry you weren't there to hear it." Now it was time to stare at him. Why was she even mentioned in connection to a will being read? "I didn't know I had been invited," she confessed, "or I would have been there." "Of course," he said. "Anyway, I wanted to give you this and this." He handed her a tiny envelope and a piece of paper. "What is this for?" "In the will, she stated that she wanted you to have her cottage, which contained 800 books. Also, she wishes the money I'm handing you to be used to open a bookmobile. She wanted everyone to have access to books." A bookmobile sounded interesting. She hadn't even thought of that. "Shouldn't this be something the library does?" "Yes, but they didn't want to do it," he told her. "They told me that they didn't have the time. They were the first mention in the will, and you second, if they didn't agree to do it." Barbara smiled and said, "I would be delighted." "Then my job is done," he said, and he walked out the store and was gone. Barbara thought all the day's surprises were over until the man she only remembered as Taylor's former teacher walked in, holding the jump drive that Hawk had told her about. "I see that you got something," she said, glad to see him again. He looked like such a nice person, and a teacher to boot, which was the best profession in the world. "Yes, and I know Taylor would want me to publish it," he told her, "and I'm going to do that, in his honor." "Well, if you need help finding an agent, I know someone who can help," Barbara told him. "Thanks, I'll take you up on that offer." He had just turned to leave when a scream made everyone in the store jump, cry, or look around. "Someone's dying! Someone's getting spanked!" A little girl cried out in fear. "Ming is having her kittens!" Sam yelled from the back. And that's when, for the first time, Barbara allowed herself to laugh. What a perfect ending to a perfect day. She turned off to help Ming have her kittens. All right. That is it for the story, minus the preview for the first chapter of the book. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos. I really do appreciate it. Next week, I will be borrowing A Peachy Death for my Kindle to read to you guys because of the nature of the room. It gets dark. So I look forward to reading those, and hopefully not get attacked by ants. Hope you're really nice. So what I will do is I will go ahead in the next video and I will do a preview of the next book. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.